Thank you.
Okay, we have one announcement, that Ashley is coming.
Hola, buenas tardes. Al que quiera escuchar el meeting en español, pueden unirse al el link de Zoom y va a haber un room, una habitación que dice ahí. Se va a aparecer como los cuatro cuadritos y cuando usted se una puede unirse a la habitación de Spanish Interpreter. Si tienen cualquier pregunta de cómo unirse, me dejan saber y yo les puedo ayudar.
Thank you. Victor?
Good evening, all. Can you hear me in the back? And make sure we're very clear. Okay. My name is Victor Edwards. I have the pleasure and the honor of being the chair of Committee Board 9. Welcome to everybody. I'm so glad to see this great turnout in person and online. We are here today to discuss a very important issue. Before I get started, I want to thank City College for hosting us and Anthony here. Okay, Anthony and Gila for putting this together for us. Your voices, our voices are very important to the community, and we should have a say what happens here, and that's why we're here today. We're no different than any other community in the city. We often taken, if I can see, for granted, and we're not gonna let that happen this time, for sure. This public hearing is a step in a ULO process, a Universal Land Review process, that some of our members fought for to make this happen. This work's not gonna happen on its own. Some of our prior board members who are here this evening, Barry Weinberg, Liz Lapakis, and Sydney, who's not here today, fought quite a few years to get this on the record so we could have this, and your voices can be heard to say what goes on in this. I wanted to introduce the board members that are working on this right up front, and that would be housing, land use, and zoning co-chairs. David Ratner, Martine Sarsi, also our health committee, Laquita Henry, who's not here, and Cameron Clark, who is here there. We ask that we be respectful of each person's opinion. We're here to listen to each other and talk about it. And also we have to be respectful of the time. We only have this room for a certain amount of time. It's not our room. So we'll be cut off and lights out and thrown out at some point. So I want to hear from everybody. We have limits on the number. You'll see the handouts that are given, the time limit you get to speak. We don't have to be rude and cut people off. We want everybody to get their opinion across. I've lived in this community for 40 years. I'm very concerned with what goes on here. I also worked in drug treatment for a number of years, and I worked in the school system. One of my tasks each week is just walk different blocks around here to see what's going on and report back and see how things are developing. So I'm very interested in hearing from each of you and answering questions that concern you about what's happening at 1727 Amsterdam Avenue. Without further ado, David Ratner.
All right, I'm not going to use a microphone because I think acoustically this is a really great.
Yes or no?
No, that's a no. Okay, I am going to use the microphone.
You can.
So I just want to give a brief. Overview of this particular application. The subject of the public hearing tonight is an application under New York City's Uniform Land Use Review Procedure filed by the New York City Department of Housing Preservation and Development to redevelop 1727 Amsterdam Avenue, which is a building located at the corner of 145th Street. The building was until recently occupied by the ML Bowen Community Service Center, a mental health provider, and the only current occupant, and HPD will correct me if they're no longer current occupant, is Heritage Health and Housing. Emma Bowen has been temporarily relocated to another site, while Heritage Health is, as far as I know, we're in the middle of an eviction proceeding from the site. Under its proposed plan, the city will sign a 99-year lease with Bowery Residents Committee, it's the so-called developer, who will demolish the existing and in its place, erect and manage a 9-story, 181,000 square foot mixed-use building to be called HIL Top Apartments. HIL Top has been designed to include 200 residential units consisting of senior, supportive, and low-income housing, and a community facility space for the ML Bowen Community Service Center. Medical services provided by Heritage Health and Housing under the current plan are not being returned to the site. And I just want to say one other thing. There are going to be a lot of acronyms read about tonight, just so everybody understands. And I would also ask the presenters as best they can to explain the acronyms. ULURP is the Uniform Land Use Review process, and Matina is going to go over that in a second. HPD is New York City Department of Housing Preservation and Development. They are the applicant for this redevelopment project for this ULURP application. And BRC is the Bowery Residents Committee, which is the developer who is going to actually oversee the work and then manage the site. So you'll be hearing BRC, HBD, ULURP, and I just hope that we keep all this in mind.
Thank you kindly, David, and good evening, everyone. My name is Mateen Sarsi. I'm the co-chair of this committee, and I'm just going to go over, just for folks who may not be familiar with ULURP. If this is your first time going through this is a process that is required by the city. Anytime there are any kind of changes to a land, either to do more than what it's meant to be, or when in this particular case, when we have city land that's involved, essentially any kind of proposal that takes place when this happens has to happen in a certain timeline. There's multiple steps, and it's also the best way to publicly record the people's voice before it goes before elected officials who make the final decisions. For this to work, we have to go through different government levels. We are beginning with the board. After us, it's going to go before the borough president. After the borough president, it'll go before the city planning commission, the city council, and finally the mayor. While the initial steps, including the one we're participating in tonight, are technically advisory, they're crucial to collecting your input. Again, this is something that affects all of us here in Harlem. I like to think that we're a community. And so anything that happens in one area happens across. And so anything that you have to say not only is going to be helpful for us to make our final determination when we present a resolution in November, but it's also going to make sure that whatever we do helps advise the elected officials with their decision making as well. And ultimately, those elected officials will determine the fate of this project. I'll pass it back to David.
So just to drill down a little bit deeper as to what this particular hearing is that we're engaged in at the moment. The purpose of this hearing is for Community Board 9 to understand what concerns and preferences the West Harlem community has about 1727 Amsterdam redevelopment project. And based on that understanding, to communicate recommendations to the public officials who will ultimately determine the fate of this project. To accomplish that goal, we'll hear directly from the applicant who will give us a presentation. also the developer as well. And after their presentation, we'll ask questions to drill down more deeply into what the project is intended to do and how the project will impact the community. And finally, most importantly, all of you will have the opportunity tonight to express directly to the applicant and to the developer, and ultimately to our public officials, our thoughts and feelings as to whether the project should be approved, disapproved, or allowed to proceed with modifications.
Thank you, David. So we're going to move from here to the public portion of the hearing, or at least I'm going to explain the public portion of the hearing. In essence, we want to know that there's going to be a lot of feelings and comments and concerns and questions. We want to make sure that we hear as much and as many people as possible. One of the things that you may have in front of you, you may have already done it. For any questions they may have, just write down those questions on the index card. When you're ready to have those questions be brought over to us, just raise your hand and somebody will come with to you to pick up the question cards. It'll come before us. One of the things that you'll see us do is, as a committee, we're going to ask questions of the and in addition to that, just so that we're not missing anything, you guys may have insights on stuff that we don't have, and we've studied this. So, any kind of questions, don't think that it's silly or anything. Please feel free to give us anything. We will collect those. If there's any repeats, we'll make sure to try to gather as much as we can for that. And for anybody online who's currently joining us, you could also use the Q&A that is on the Zoom chat, and we'll also use those questions as well. So we anticipate that there's going to be a lot of strong opinions expressed tonight, and everyone is certainly invited to share those opinions. Just be mindful that we all need to speak in respectful tones, just so we can make sure that everyone's voice is heard and to be considered. If you wish to make a statement tonight, you will have 2 minutes to speak. This time limit is to ensure anyone who wants to address the board and the applicant is able to do so. Lastly, we know public.
Hang on 1 second. 1 second.
It's just 1 minute.
No, it's 2 minutes.
Oh.
It was changed.
Okay.
Right.
So we know public speaking isn't for everyone. One of the things that you could do is there's a form here that you might have had. You could also place your statement on the form, provide it over to us, and we can make sure that it goes into public record. In addition, in case you want to spend some time to think about it, you want to write something down, you want to craft something that really gathers your thoughts on the forms that you have here. Not only do you have an overview of this project, you have these QR codes that are placed on here. You can use your phone to snap a photo of the QR code, which will take you to the online form, where you can also get a copy of this online, both in English and in Spanish. And you could also submit your questions as well as any public statements online as well. We're going to have this particular link open up until Saturday, November 15th. So even after this meeting, please feel free to take your time. You have until November 15th to submit any kind of testimony, things that may be coming to your mind, after that you may be thinking of, please do so. And I'll pass it back to David.
So we're gonna have the presentation next. And I do want to welcome HPD and BRC, and I believe we have some representatives from Health and Hospitals who are also here. So I'm just going to quickly go through and tell you who you'll be hearing from, and I assume they'll introduce themselves when they come up as well. We have Agatha Naxlika, Senior Planner, Manhattan Planning, New York City Housing Preservation and Development, which I will now be referring to as HPD. Joy Rezor, who's the Deputy Director of Manhattan Planning for HPD. Justin Donlan, Senior Project Manager, Division of Government Affairs for HPD. Amy Pivak, did I get that right? Thank you. Assistant Commissioner for Planning and Pre-Development for HPD. Kyle Jeremiah, who's from the Bowery Residence Committee, which again, I'll be referring to and probably everybody else as BRC. And he's the Director of External Affairs for BRC, and they are, as I mentioned before, the developer. Nicole Claire, who's the Chief Real Estate Development Officer for BRC. Miguel de la Cruz, who's the Assistant Vice President, Government and Community Affairs for New York City Health and Hospitals, which often will probably be referred to as H&H. And then Deborah Morris, who's Health and Hospitals Senior Director of Land Use Planning and Real Estate. So I'm going to turn it over to the applicant and the developer for their presentation.
Well, I'm just going to kick off quickly. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for having us here. Again, my name is Amy Tillack, and I'm the Assistant Commissioner for Plan and Redevelopment at HPD. I know this project has been in the works for a while, including through staff changes on our end. So we're really excited to be here today and hear directly from you what you think you want to know about the plan. We understand there are a lot of questions, and I hope that we're able to provide a lot of good and helpful answers. And as I said, we're also here to listen. So please, everything you're thinking and you're feeling, we're taking lots of notes and taking it to heart. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Agatha to lead us through a presentation. And thank you so much for being here. Alrighty.
Okay, so good evening, everyone. As mentioned earlier, my name is Agatha and I work for HPD. I'm going to be presenting a portion of this presentation, and then I'm going to hand it over to the BRC to walk us through more details on the growth project. And also, as mentioned earlier, we're here this evening as part of the HIL process to solicit your feedback, and we're really excited to be presenting on the HIL Top Apartments project. So our agenda for this evening will be as follows. Okay, so the proposed development will be developed on a city-owned lot in Manhattan's Hamilton Heights neighborhood, specifically block 2060, lot 1. Currently, the site is utilized as community facility space, and the existing building is beyond its useful life and need of redevelopment. And as mentioned earlier, the applicant for this HIL application is HPD, and our development partner working with us on this project is the Bowery Residence Committee, and this project certified into HIL on September 14th. The new 9-story as-of-right mixed-use building proposed on the HIL Top Apartments project will include approximately 200 units for senior supportive, and low-income households. Approximately 120 of those units will be supportive housing units, and there also will be one additional building manager's unit. And these supportive units will be filled with existing health and hospital patients who are both mutual clients of health and hospitals and the Department of Homeless Services. This project will also include replacement community facility space for the Emma L. Bowen Community Service Center, and this proposed development will be developed under HPD's Supportive Housing Loan Program, otherwise known as SHLP, and the non-supportive units will be affordable to households earning up to 60% of the area median income, otherwise known as AMI. We also want to note for all the units in the building that are non-supportive, tenants to be able to use their rental assistance vouchers, including for the 60% AMI units. And to facilitate this project, HPD is proposing land use action, designation of the project area as an urban development action area, and approval of an urban development action area project on the project area and disposition of the development site. And what this means basically is the site will be disposed, meaning it will change ownership from the city to BRC. Just want to correct that there is no ground lease. Okay, so moving on to project background. In August 2019, HPD designated the Barry Residence Committee to develop the site through its supportive housing request for qualifications, otherwise known as an RFQ. And this was a call for proposals from a list of pre-qualified developers with expertise in supportive housing to develop supportive housing on city-owned sites. BRC was chosen off this list to develop 1727 Amsterdam, and sponsored from this list are selected on a rolling basis. From 2019 to 2022, BRC worked on developing the project in collaboration with the Emma Bowen Center and HPD amidst a global pandemic. Health and Hospitals, HPD, and BRC also briefed the borough president, the council member, and state representatives. In the fall of 2022, BRC began community outreach, which has continued to this day. In spring 2024, Health and Hospitals, who had been overseeing the management of 1727 Amsterdam, began the process to amend their operating agreement from 1969 to include 9 healthcare properties that were not included in their operating agreement, including 1727 Amsterdam, which had been in their management since 1976. In spring 2025, council action amended the operating agreement to include 8 of those 9 properties. And as the amended operating agreement did not include 1727 Amsterdam, it has become necessary to utilize Bueller to facilitate the disposition of the development site under HPD's authority. New York City is also in the midst of a historic affordable housing crisis, guided by the housing blueprint and where we live plans. The city is working on an ambitious effort to increase housing options for low-income New Yorkers, including supportive housing across the city. In 2024, Health and Hospitals alone treated approximately 80,000 patients experiencing homelessness, of which half of those are individual clients of the Department of Homeless Services, otherwise known as DHS, and Health and Hospitals. Harlem Hospital alone provided care to 5,000 patients experiencing homelessness. 1727 presents a unique opportunity to redevelop an existing healthcare site with affordable and supportive housing along with new and improved healthcare space. Here we just have some additional context on the project's location. So this project is located in the Hamilton Heights neighborhood, as mentioned earlier. It's along Amsterdam Avenue at the intersection of West 145th Street and West 146th Street. The site is located in close proximity to several historic districts. It is 2 blocks away from the 145th Street subway station. It is also in close proximity to several bus routes. And now I'll turn it over to Nicole and Kyle from BRC to speak in more detail on this project.
Thank you, Agatha. Good evening, everyone. Once again, my name is Nicole Clare. I'm BRC's Chief Real Estate Development Officer. As mentioned before, BRC, our full name stands for Barry Residence Committee. We are a not-for-profit, a developer and social service provider founded in 1971. So we bring over 54 years of experience into the work. We presently operate 1,100 units of permanent housing citywide, which represents nearly a third of BRC's total programs, which are over 30 citywide. Our focus is on successful outcomes for the people that we serve. We serve nearly 13,000 individuals every year. As I mentioned, successful client outcomes is our focus. And we do see the best client outcomes in, as you can imagine, providing permanent, supportive, and affordable housing, like we're discussing here at HIL Top Apartments, in order to allow people to achieve greater levels of health, stability, and progress towards their personal goals. Some context on existing programs we run in Upper Manhattan, including a New York State Office of Mental Health funded community residence on West 132nd Street between Adam Powell and Lenox Avenue and Boulevard. A new safe haven that opens in May on East 115th Street between 5th Avenue and Madison Avenue. And actually just yesterday, we opened a new women's residence in Inwood on the corner of 10th Avenue and West 212th Street. This also gives you, sorry, just quickly on that slide that you might have, it also shows a picture of the existing developments, and the housing and a studio apartment there. In terms of the Hilltop Apartments project that we're here to discuss, as Agatha mentioned, it involves the demolition, so tearing down an existing 50-year-old structure that's beyond its useful life. Inefficiently laid out in many ways, that's currently managed by Health and Hospitals, and constructing and building a new 9-story mixed-use affordable housing building containing 200 apartments. 100% of those apartments, so every apartment, all of the building, will be affordable to households earning up to 60% of area median income, another acronym, AMI. And also, as Agatha mentioned, for seniors, a senior supportive, and low-income households. In future slides, I'll talk a little bit more about what that means in terms of rents and incomes, and what we mean when we talk about area median income that we're looking to serve. On-site, the building will also provide, as a housing program, on-site social services for all tenants in the building. So all tenants will have access to services provided by on-site staff, caring, dedicated people, including case managers, activity specialists, healthcare navigators, for instance, who connect residents to local resources, other organizations in the neighborhood, develop partnerships, with the focus, as I mentioned, of maintaining health and helping tenants achieve their goals, including families with services such as homework help. We also have a large group of volunteers who provide dedicated services to our residents. The building itself will provide staffing 24 hours, 7 days a week at the front desk. The main entrance will be along Amsterdam Avenue, and the building itself will be well lit, including at night, and offer an extra level of protection that way. As mentioned before, and I'll go into a little bit more detail, we're also providing a new community facility space for Emma Elbow Community Service Center, who's been a tenant of the existing building also since the 70s, across 3 floors of the building. The building also includes amenities, including indoor and outdoor community spaces, flexible multi-purpose community rooms, which, as you see, will give people the opportunity, for instance, the seniors that we're serving, to socialize, landscape courtyard and terraces, giving the opportunity for gardening, quiet relaxation, outdoor exercise. And the community rooms also can host resident meetings, celebrations, holiday meals, bingo nights, film screenings, for example, and also laundry facilities on site. In terms of affordability, as I mentioned, of the 200 apartments, and who they'll be serving, 120 of those units, as mentioned before, are supportive housing, including 20% of which will also serve seniors, so senior supportive. So again, of the 120 supportive units, 20% of those will serve seniors as senior supportive housing. And the others will be dedicated as low-income households, including another tier for seniors, specifically in the 40% of AMI tier. 23 of those units will be set aside for older adults ages 62 plus. So in total, when we talk about how many seniors the building will serve, it's almost 1/4 of the building. So about 24% of the building will be serving seniors. That's roughly 48 units. The other units will be a range of 1 bedrooms, 2 bedrooms, and 3 bedrooms, set aside at 40% AMI and 60% of area median. So the next slide just speaks to what that means when we talk about those income limits. And again, as affordable housing, as a requirement of getting funding for HPD, those apartments will be rent stabilized. Of course, everyone will have a tenant, will have a lease, keys to their own units, of course. And annual, being rent stabilized means that annual increases are approved by the Rent Guidelines Board. So in terms of affordability, the supported units, will be referred, and we can talk a little bit more about that, in partnership with the hospitals and some of the patients that we mentioned. Those residents will pay no more than 30% of their income across the board. The nature of affordable housing is that folks pay no more than 30% of their income. And when we talk about area median income, 40%, as I mentioned, that's depending on the size of their household, ranges from $45,000 to $75,000. In terms of the rents they will pay, roughly $900 to $1,600 a month. And then at 60% AMI, incomes ranging from $68,000 to $113,000, with rents from roughly $1,400 to $2,400, typically inclusive of utilities. It's an all-electric building, so it will include heating and cooling. We're also required to provide broadband internet. Please. So we'd like to provide more information about Emma L. Bowen Community Service Center. As we mentioned, they've offered services at that site for many years, including a therapeutic preschool for children with behavioral and developmental issues, programs for adults and seniors with mental health and substance abuse issues, chemical abuse outpatient programs, mental health-based services for children and adolescents, and a very popular food pantry program. Several years ago, Emma Bowen Center signed a letter of agreement to return to the building upon completion of the building. And as David mentioned earlier, actually in the next couple months, they will be relocating to a temporary building not far away on the corner of on 135th Street. So just roughly 10 blocks south of the existing building. At that relocation, all services will be continued. There is no loss of current services offered by ML Bowen Service Center. The next slide speaks to the work we've been working very closely, and they've actually promised a letter of support that they'll be providing to the community board. I should mention, it was on the previous slide, that the community board 9 members has toured their temporary space on 135th Street. So this is a sense of what we expect the new facility at the new building to look like. We worked very closely with their staff and their board over 16 months, and obviously continues to design the space specifically for them. So when we use the term purpose-built, it was working very closely with our architecture team and our in-house team to understand what their current services are, what their space needs are. The space we're able to design for them will be much more efficiently laid out than in the current building. As you can imagine, the current building being 50 years old was designed at a different time. A lot of hallways, a lot of inefficient space. We'll be providing brand new space for them across 3 stories. And using specifically the best practices. We toured other facilities with them to understand the best practices for the services they provide, specifically the therapeutic preschools, as you can see in some of the lower pictures. Nice, bright, helpful for young children. Also, they will be having a dedicated playground as they do now. And they will continue to offer all their current services at a rent that they can afford. So that's critical. For the next 20 years or more. So it really is providing long-term stability and consistency for ML Bowen to continue to provide the services that they provide in the community. Now turn it over to Kyle.
I can just put this over here and feel indulgent. I mean, it's just with my hands. Good evening, everyone. My name is Kyle Jarnline. I'm the Director of External Affairs for the Valley Residence Committee, ERC. I'm here to briefly talk about the neighbor-centric approach to this project. So this will be permanent affordable homes with the rent licenses. It's not a shelter, it's not transitional housing. We're going to have on-site support for New Yorkers with disabilities. And about 30% of ERC's programs are housing programs, and 94% of our tenants will own a house, which is to say, if you move into the ERC house, it's likely, the ERC apartment is likely to be your forever home. Referrals are made through New York City's coordinated entry system. The state HIL Top focuses on the Department of Homeland Services and NYC Health and Hospital Compliance. Services funded by NYC's 1515 program, it's case management, 24/7 security, wraparound supports. And as Nicole mentioned during her presentation, we have 1,100 units already built, with 500 more currently in pipeline. So it's more than a supportive housing model, it's a commitment to a community you can live in. Next slide, please. So on-site services. We're gonna have healthcare access, life skills coaching, benefits assistance, enrichment programs. And in terms of safety and support team, we're gonna have clinical staff, 8 case managers, healthcare navigators, activity specialists, 24/7 desk clerks and security, residence manager, super and maintenance staff. So this isn't about managing crises, it's about building resilience. These homes are designed to last with the right services to help residents stay, grow, and become long-term livers. So what are the commission benefits here? So HIL Top Apartments will deliver lasting benefits that help Harlem residents stay, thrive, and be proud of the place that they call home. 100% of the affordable housing development, 200 affordable and supportive housing units for formerly homeless, senior, and low-income households earning up to 60% AMI, as Michael previously outlined. 120 supportive units, I must reemphasize, reserved for NYC H&H patients who are mutual and eligible clients of DHS and H&H. So we're also going to be having a new and improved purpose-built space for the ML Bowling Center. And I must acknowledge that while they could not be here today, they have agreed to submit another formal letter of support for this project to the community board in coming days. So you guys should expect that shortly. We're going to be generating approximately 250 construction jobs with a commitment to local hiring, up to 25 full-time permanent jobs on site, including case management, operations, and maintenance. Now, our standard practice includes local job fairs, targeted to MCB9 residents, and workforce development. So we look forward to working with the community board to host those local job fairs. Housing lottery workshops and application support for local residents will also be conducted. I also want to acknowledge that Carver Bank is a co-construction lender for this project, which supports investments in Harlem, investments they make in Harlem, rather, and we have their team here today in the audience as well. So the next slide outlines community outreach. The outreach from September 2022 to August 2025. So far, BRC has received 9 letters of support from local stakeholders and community organizations. We have offered and will continue to offer tours of existing developments to interested CB9 and community members. So you guys can reach out to me and we can facilitate those tours. And we will continue ongoing engagement in keeping with our good neighbor policy, because we don't want to be in position in this community. We want to be a part of this community. And next slide. In terms of the community outreach update that I have for you guys, we have heard you. We're giving a presentation tonight, but we're really here to listen, and we have listened. And we have made some adjustments to this project to better align with the community needs and the asks that we've received from the community board. We've added 4 more family-sized units at 40% AMI. We've added more 40% AMI units overall by decreasing the number of 60% AMI units. 15% CB9 preference and collaboration with NYC, H&H, and Harlem Hospital for eligible referrals for supportive housing. Provided more information about supportive services which all of our tenants will benefit from. We explored, and we'll continue to explore the opportunity for community meeting space available to CB9 and other community organ. And committed to hosting local job fairs in collaboration with the community board and the council member's office. HPD and BRC are exploring ways to address the community's requests to make this a successful project. Thanks for your time, and I'll turn it back over to Adam.
Okay, and this is our last slide. We're just ending with some information on the ULURP timeline. So as mentioned earlier, this project certified into ULURP on September 15th. We're currently at the community board review stage. And given the standard ULURP timeline, this puts the anticipated ULURP completion in spring of 2026. We want to thank you all for listening to our presentation. HPD is very excited to be working with PRC on this project, and we look forward to hearing your questions and comments. Thank you.
Questions? Okay, do you mind? Yeah. Okay, I just want to remind everybody that if you do have questions, we're asking you to write them out on index cards that were passed out when you came in. If you would like to ask a question and you didn't receive a card, just raise your hand and we'll pass them out. And then when you're done, just raise your hand again and we'll collect them. And as Mateen indicated, the way the next step in this process is that the committee board 9 committee member. I'm sorry, the committee board 9 community board members are going to start the questioning off. We did reserve time for elected officials, but I don't know that we have any elected officials amongst us. If we do, they should probably identify themselves. And then after that, we'll take the public questions, which we'll read off, and then public testimonies after that. So I'm going to turn this over to the team to get started.
Thank you kindly, David. So first off, I want to thank you, HPD, HMH, BRC for coming, presenting to us. I really want to like this proposal. Part of the thing, so this is going to go into my question. So part of my thing that I'm going into with this is I feel like there's something missing. And when you see that you've mentioned that there's been other sites that you've also worked with. I looked at one that came to the news recently, Morsinia River Commons. And with that, I'm going to kind of ask this question in terms of how does this project reconcile the fact that the 7RA reduces has a net reduction in community health space by 64%, and the displacement of a federally qualified health center with the precedent set by Morsinia River Commons, where it's a similar H&H site maximized with bulk to 17 stories at 327 units of affordable housing, complete with amenities, 2 resource centers, green space, an expanded H&H Gotham clinic at 43,000 square feet. How do we reconcile that and still say that we're listening to the community when we're saying we want more affordability?
Can you clarify the question a little bit, because they're both 2 as of right development proposals. So the Morsinia River Commons project is a physically larger site. It includes a surface parking garage. This is a significantly smaller site. Neither require any zoning changes.
I think in terms of the changes, I guess part of the question would be, you seem to have gotten a lot more out of the Morrisania site than you have on this one. In this particular site, you know, you're building as of right, 70 day. When you really could be doing more. Part of the thing that confuses me is they tend to give a lot of these financial incentives to private developers and what it kind of seems to me here is we seem to be doing the bare. And so I bring up the Morrisania site because it doesn't look like the bare minimum over there. And you're saying here you're building as a frame, but what's the financial justification for the underutilization of this particular property? When if you're, you know, looking at financing, you're using city subsidy. When you have the ability to upzone, especially when you're saying that there's a need for housing, you have the ability to upzone to increase the amount of units. And the community board has brought, you know, they brought a number up, but under the city of yes, you could actually go even further, and it bothers me that that's not pursued. Only because I'm considering the fact that if we want to increase the number of units, you could actually maximize the use of low-income tax credits. Which then would reduce the amount of subsidy that you would need in terms of the supporting housing units. I'm not saying get rid of it, I'm saying that's an addition. I'm just saying, it seems that you're leaving a lot on the table. And when it comes to the developers, we seem to really love to give them upzoning. So I guess my question is, in all this, can you provide a justification that shows that R7A project minimizes direct public subsidy? In this case, looking at supportive housing loans and HLC units.
Thanks for that question. We've definitely gotten this question before, and as Amy mentioned, this project has been around for quite a few years. It does already have DOT plan approval, it's gone through environmental review. It has a lot of approvals that are already necessary to start construction, and this is as of right. This is again 100% affordable, and we are still thinking about what we can do within the balance of those approvals. But rezoning would set this project back about 3 years. And to be honest, there's a lot of uncertainty at the federal level. I think a lot of people are aware of that. And HPD is 60% federally funded. So we do have some concerns about being able to construct this project in the next few years if we don't move quickly. So just want to give some context on that. In terms again of not pursuing a rezoning here, there are historic districts nearby, and so we wanted to be considerate of that as well. 200 units is also based on BRC's expertise, sort of the max number of units that they're comfortable operating to the best of their abilities, and I can have them speak to that as well. But that's a little bit more context about why we're not pursuing a rezoning.
I'll also just quickly add, before handing over to BRC, a rezoning would add around 2 to 3 years to this project's timeline, which is further funding and resources that would be required from HPD to put into this project. So it's an additional expense and resources when this project we're investing in its approval, as mentioned by Joy, and HPD is focused on getting housing online as quickly as possible.
I just want to speak to the point of comparison of another H&H project, Morrisania River Commons. That physical site is 3 to 4 times the size of this site, and the building is not that much substantially larger. So I think there is kind of an urban design question there of really how much more building would be appropriate to be feasible to financially construct.
Yeah.
David.
Introduce yourself. Please.
Hi, I'm Rhea McDonald. I'm a member of Community Board 9 and the Housing Land Use Zoning Committee. I just wanted to clarify when you said the rezoning would take 2 more years. What is taking up that time?
Yeah, so I can take the style of that and ZRC feel free to jump in from your experience, but as Joy mentioned, this project has DOB plan approval, meaning all of its designs are finalized and approved by the Department of Buildings. So a redesign would require, from the architect's standpoint, redesigning the whole building. There's also financial consideration, so there's balancing between how many units the city can subsidize per project. So also redoing the entire financing for the project. There's also an environmental review process that takes at least 7 months. So redoing the whole environmental analysis to take into consideration a higher density project. Those are some of the considerations that would set back the project 2 to 3 years if it were to be redesigned and pursue a project for additional density.
I'd like to ask some follow-up questions about this, mostly having to do with process. And I want to start off by essentially making an observation that you made yourself in this presentation, which is that this is a unique site. This is a site that very, very rarely comes along. It's city-owned property. It's not driven by developer profits. It is and should be driven by community needs and by the needs of the city. And I'm assuming that nothing I've said is really open to argument about that. And there's a slide there, I think it's the 16th page, which talks about community outreach to date. What this slide shows, I think, if I'm understanding it correctly, is that this project really got underway at least by 2019 when BRC was chosen as the developer. And then the slide is entitled Community Outreach to Date. And when I read those words, community outreach, I understand that to mean either the applicant or the developer actually reaching out to the community. However, and I'm new to the community board, so all I can tell you is what I think that I've learned in the last few months of looking at this thing. Well, it's certainly clear that there was no community outreach as such during the period 2019, 2022. I don't think that briefings to the borough presidents, council members, and state reps constitute community outreach. I would just ask that no clapping or booing in case I need to be booed. I mean, I don't think that qualifies as community outreach or any attempt to understand what the community needs are. Then there's a line here that says BRC has periodically conducted public outreach. And again, this certainly suggests that BRC actually, decided to get in contact with Community Board 9 or some other way of assessing the community's understanding or input into this project. And in fact, as I understand it, what happened was that in August of 2022, Community Board 9, essentially by accident, found out about this project.
Right.
They were told that there were soil samples being taken at the site. Nobody from BRC, nobody from HPD, nobody from Health and Hospital came and told them anything. Community Board 9 reached out to Health and Hospitals and said, what is going on here? And this September 2022 initial outreach was our outreach, not Health and Hospitals outreach. So it was, and as I understand it also, at that time, the Community Board 9 asked for copies of the plans and were not given the plans. They were only given a broad outline of what was going on. It was only through the efforts of Community Board 9 that the city actually and BRC actually started to share any of these plans with us and through us with the community. You also said that essentially there couldn't be a redesign of the program because there were plans filed and approved with the city. I've been trying to get information about those plans and about those filings with great difficulty, but I believe I am correct in saying that those plans were filed basically either in May or June of 2023. Again, before any real community input. And now we are being told that because they've been filed and because they have been approved, there can't be changes. So it just seems to me that there has been a lack of transparency. There has been a lack of community outreach. There has been a lack of any attempt to involve the community in what is an incredibly unique opportunity for developing something that is going to reflect the needs, the hopes, the aspirations of the actual community where this development is being made. And to put a question mark on the end of this whole thing, I would just ask that you address those concerns.
Thank you. I'm gonna let BRC speak to this as well, but I want to acknowledge we're very aware that there's been a lot of anger about the lack of outreach that happened during that time. My impression is that the team was working on getting a proposal that was in good shape, fully ready to be presented publicly before they reached out. I'll have them do that, but I do want to reiterate that we are here today to hear from you. The project does have DOT plan approval, but we want to see what we can do in the balance of that, and we really want to hear your concerns. So I don't know how there's anything else you wanted to add.
Pardon me, I wasn't taking that, I'm gonna try to go through all the names that you raised. I will say that since joining the RC in 2024, shortly after I joined, I met with the board, I think it was a public meeting or board meeting. It was a board meeting, right? And I heard similar concerns that, there was not effective outreach from the onset. I do want to acknowledge, given the COVID time period, not much to report on. No, that's not right here.
Yeah, please. We need
You're right.
we need to respect everybody here.
I appreciate your concerns and your anger about not being fully.
Just be honest. Don't that's all people that work here.
And allow me to clarify, I'm not suggesting that we didn't reach out to you because of the. So since joining VRC in 2024, I've heard these concerns personally. I gave a commitment to recalibrating the relationship with the community board, and in engaging with various groups within the community board. So that outreach, giving a commitment to doing that outreach as well. What I will say is that I fully acknowledge that BRC could have done a better job at working with the community board and keeping you guys abreast of developments since 2019. I publicly made that acknowledgement when I spoke with you guys last year. And we move forward. Since then, I've attempted to the board chair, even in terms of clarifying what was supposed. Because I know at the time there were misconceptions about the nature of the project, whether this is a homeless shelter, whether it was a stabilization site and what have you, just to clarify the parameters of the project. And beyond that, beyond the acknowledgement that, we could have done better. We could have done about a better job. Period. There's no but there. And I said that publicly last year, and I just want to say, sir, I didn't mean to offend the crowd when I brought up the pandemic. I just wanted to give a full context of the timeline of events. And since then, just in terms of showing you that this is a multi-stakeholder project, beyond BRC, we've had me and then the other team members engaging with the community board and other stakeholders in the community. So all I can say is that we have attempted to do a better job, and we are continuing to do so. If you have any questions, and certainly we've had opportunities to respond to some questions you've had in recent months, and we'll continue to do so if any questions are asked.
I appreciate that acknowledgement, but you are saying that since you've come on, you're trying to be more transparent and honest and open. And yet tonight you show up with a PowerPoint presentation where you talk about making community outreach in September of 2022. There was no, what is the transparency there? That's a false statement. Nobody made community outreach to CB9 in September of 2022. And I mean, that was,
So let me just say,
okay.
we came on board.
Mike.
20.
No, I get that, but I'm just saying
So
there is
we
a,
don't need to go back.
okay,
I need to go. Yeah.
Sorry, question.
Yeah, we're gonna get to your questions, but sorry, microphone. What I want to do is let a prior chair who forced it to come to where we are today, the HIL process, he has a question he wanted to ask, and we have discussed. So Barry.
Thank you, Victor. I am currently a member of the Housing, Zoning, and Land Use Committee, a public member. My questions are mostly for HPD. And specifically, there's this question of a rezoning and it taking 2 to 3 years, which is why 3 years ago CB9 suggested it. And one of the things you've mentioned is the environmental review and that the environmental review is done. Who was the lead agency that determined that there was no impact based on the environmental review?
So thank you for your question. The lead agency was HPD. And I just want to note it's common for the same agency to occupy the role of an applicant and also the lead agency in the review. In fact, it's required and stipulated in the rules and procedures of the seeker technical manual. So HPD.
Thank you. And so I think a major question that I have, and I put a link to the EAS in the chat and Zoom if you want, but one of the first questions that CB9 asked was about the impact that this would have on the health care services. There are like 10,000 clients at Heritage Health and Housing that are going to lose their health care in some form. And those questions would normally be addressed in an environmental review, except it's way up at the top from the beginning of the meeting.
Okay.
Except on page 8 of the environmental review, next one more up, there you go. Yeah. So if we can go to the page 8. It's 8 in blue, so that's 5, so scroll down 3 more times. So,
Almost.
yeah, scroll down one more, there you go, right there. So, community facilities 3A, would the project directly eliminate, displace, or alter public or publicly funded community facilities such as educational facilities, libraries, healthcare facilities, daycare centers, police stations, and fire stations? The answer to that question was no. And given that you are displacing a federally qualified health center with no plan as to where or how it will relocate, why was that answer no?
Yeah, thank you so much for that question. So this is, I'm just gonna step back, because I think this is a pretty technical document, and most people are not familiar with EASs. This is an environmental assessment statement, and this is required through the seeker permit review process. This process is used to determine whether a development would have any sort of environmental impact on the neighborhood. So this was issued in 2023, I believe. We actually provided a technical memo in 2024. Yeah. We issued a technical memorandum today, which included an acknowledgement of the relocation of heritage. And we actually have a slide in our deck. It's in the appendix, it's the first slide, showing where that new space would be. That's going to be owned by Heritage Health Center, and it's also going to be away from the current space. So because of that, and also because that McDonald's Center is moving about 10 blocks south, we do not consider that to be we being HPP environmental, and also the seeker technical manual don't consider that to be a direct impact because it's within the restaurant area. It's still within the neighborhood, and if we could just pull up the.
I mean, alter seems pretty broad. Yeah, I'd like to see the slide.
Yeah, this one, it's actually, yeah.
32. Yeah, 32.
If you keep going down, sorry.
It's, keep it in the wind. See pennies. Facility.
Yeah, so this is actually taken straight from the memo, and it shows you the location of 1727 Amsterdam, the location of the new space for heritage, and that's just, yeah, so, yeah. Just for some of the conflicts that are leading to now slide, but.
So this was entered today.
Yes, so the original analysis was missing some information. We received a letter from Community Board 9, so we took that back to our environmental team. They analyzed it, and we provided this additional information available to the public in the next few days through seeker access. And we also shared this document with MCB9 today. We just received this letter last week, so we're gonna take care of it.
And so,
Read it up.
so,
Wait.
Okay? You said they did that survey when, 2020,
or 2023, it sounded like.
2023. That's when they did it.
2024 was when the original EAS was published, and this was just published today.
Okay, that's survey. I'm asking you, that survey that you said, that y'all did in 2022. Okay, so what I'm saying, we not 2 miles from the site. We're on 143rd and 142nd Street. That's where we're moving to, okay? And we did that on our own. We wasn't offered anything from DRC. As of today, has there been any communication with DRC? I sent them a letter recently stating that they did not communicate with us, and I received a general response just yesterday from them. Okay, we have not got anything from HPD Okay, the only thing we got was an illegal eviction notice from HHC. Okay, so that's what's been going on. In Heritage, we're moving to 142nd and 141st Amsterdam Avenue, 1649. When, soon as the city stops holding up all of our certifications, okay, all of our permits.
Wow.
And that's what the delay has been. Every time we send something to the city or we hand deliver it, they say, take it in the mail. Then you send it in the mail and it's up under a pile of papers waiting for a signature. We move into a building that we own.
Amen.
We own. Y'all help and we're going to 520 West 131st
With us.
then offer us a Buffalo nickel. I'm here with my CEO,
Hello, everybody.
okay? And we have over 30,000 patient visits per year. We did not shut down during COVID. We did not furlough anyone except for the dentists during COVID, and they did outreach. Okay, so BRC is not trying to help us. We asked for a meeting with BRC, but I understand they was told that we didn't want to move. We want to move. We'd be glad to move, but nobody's offering us any type of help.
You know, respect
I
our
have a
community,
letter
so
right now for BRC.
I'm Deborah Morris from Health and Hospital. Our door has always been open to sit and discuss and come to town about.
Yeah, no, I'm not talking about.
So, and the communication we have had historically about, the space is that you have had every intention to move to 1649 Amsterdam.
I know,
So-
so that, but BRC didn't know it here, that right here, they said the general.
So if I don't want to, the input is very valuable, I don't want to leave question and answer from the community board completely. I do have another question. So this is a UR because it's a disposition of city-owned property via 99-year lease. There's also you're selling?
Oh.
And you're leasing it to BRC?
Very.
Oh, it's a sale.
That's a great trend.
One quick question though is for the UDAP, what is UDAP? Urban Development. The Urban Development Action Area Program for the tax break, I guess. That law requires that the area meet criteria for being a slum or blighted. When was that determination made and where was it recorded?
Oh, all right.
You didn't certainly look into that, I know that's standard language, and we don't have Amy actually at the first time.
And we certainly look into that more and get back, but a lot of times part of the definition of the UDAP or the Urban Development Action Area Program is blighted or underutilized. And so I think sometimes when we have a vacant site or an underutilized site that could have more development upon it, it can qualify as a UDAP site. But we can certainly come back with additional information on that.
That's awful, that's awful.
Sorry, it's very,
That's awful, to my neighborhood. That's awful.
Okay, but we're getting.
Landmark.
That's
That's awful, and $3 million home. Sorry.
Thank you. So, I wanted to get to some of the questions that were brought before us from the community.
have to
Yeah.
committee member?
No, that's right. Committee member, that's good.
Yes,
Yes,
absolutely.
Come on up.
It's gonna be hard for me to come up.
Okay.
Okay, you know what, it's fine, you guys can hear me, right?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I have three very rapid fire quick questions, okay, the first one is the affordability for this project. Is it in perpetuity, like how is that going, is that in the deed, like what is the time frame? Because it's a sale for the affordability, because I say affordability because I know it's like 40 to 60 AMI, I'm not crazy about that, but whatever. How long is the affordability built into it? That's my first question. And then I have two others, I'm sorry, I'm on the housing committee, so don't mind, answer that as well.
A good quick answer.
Quick answers.
So I believe for this project, it's a 60-year regulatory agreement. at minimum 6 years, but the way HPD structures its projects is that it will delay interest on the loan that HPD is providing. So after the 6 years, the developer either has the option to repay the interest or enter into a new agreement with HPD. It's called a balloon mortgage payment. Technically, this system is set up to be affordable and
Okay.
Okay, I'm sorry.
And also, sorry, I just want to clarify, the units will also be rent stabilized. which
Right, no,
was
no, no.
mentioned Before, so there are additional protections for that as well.
Right, no.
So after the 60 years, people would not be necessarily.
So the second question is for the studio units. Is it individual, like family, like what is the makeup for the formerly homeless, formerly unhoused individuals? How many people per studio?
Single adult.
Single adult, one members.
One.
Oh, okay. And then the other question, I'm sorry, bear with me. You mentioned like medical assistance for the formerly unhoused. Can you talk more about, is that like drug dependency programs, mental health programs? Can you go into specifics? Because it doesn't really talk about that.
Absolutely, yeah. I'm gonna invite BRC to speak to some of the services that we provide.
Briefly, so that we want to hear from everybody. So thank you. Sorry.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you for your question. And the question was, the types of medical services, and you did mention, the answer is yes. It's whatever the needs are of those particular patients, they're coming out of health and hospitals. So, focus on their physical health, their mental health, whatever their needs may be. If they have a need for addiction treatment, we provide those services and work closely with local providers, in the neighborhood. So it really is the range. Oh, what we find with our.
No, it's not that much, so I'm sorry.
Sorry, I have referrals through referrals to local organizations. What we do find in the nature of the patients that we do serve and the clients that we serve, many people have chronic medical conditions, whether or not that's diabetes, heart disease. We work closely with ensuring, you may have mentioned, there will be a healthcare navigator, for instance, to make sure people are making their medical appointments. We have a van that brings them to their medical appointments. We'll continue to offer, continuum of care. If they were patients in Harlem Hospital or other health and hospitals, facilities and continue that. So that is our focus is their health, mental, physical, the building itself will provide opportunities for that. Brand new, as we mentioned, because it's brand new apartments, outdoor space, socialization. So it really is a concept.
So it could be the drug dependency and mental health.
Yes. Yes, offered through referral.
But not on site, they're off site, they're not providing those services on site, they're referring clients to the services so they get them. So that are not, so BRC is not the service provider.
We have a service provider.
We have a
case manager.
You're not a clinic there.
So we. What do you?
So we're gonna alternate in terms of the questions. One of the questions I got is, please explain who will own this site. Will it be owned by BRC? And if so, what are the terms of that property transfer? How many years will the site support affordable housing and supportive housing?
Yeah, so it's really.
Or the answer to this.
So why don't the.
Yeah, so in this case, what were the terms of the property transfer? Because if it wasn't a 99-year lease, then.
Yes, it would be ownership by BRC. So they would transfer the ownership. BRC developed the property in accordance with the regulatory agreement that was the 60 years that was mentioned.
And is this one of those $1?
Yes.
Sales?
Please see the regulatory agreement. They get recorded when they're ready to finance, so it will be recorded on the property and available by the city. Through Atlas. Do you have a sense of when that will occur? Is it based, is it? 2020.
So I have another question. Please describe the concrete plans to address the gaps in health services caused by the loss of space for Heritage Health. That could be anyone.
Yeah.
Again, per our understanding, Heritage Health is moving all their services 2 blocks away, so there will be no gap in services or change in services, because they'll be providing their services at a new location. And that is what they have communicated to us in writing and in speaking.
Can I do the following? That's it. There are,
Take the mic.
There are other local health offices and organizations, and Heritage Health has a number of services that I don't know if DRC will have or not. What is the possibility of assigning or working to contract certain services to them? Because they have been a recognized agency in our community for a number of years. Ophthalmology, dental. Is there some opportunity to, and what, much more than that? Have you thought about that, or is the relationship or what we've done too hard?
You're like referring our tenants?
Healthcare services,
To the community.
do we have local?
I mean, again,
services?
what services Heritage offers within its own space are up to its determination.
That wasn't my case.
Yeah, I think I understood you with the.
Yeah, there may be-
It wouldn't be by contract, it would be by the needs of those particular tenants, if they had a need to refer to local providers, service providers. So there is a possibility.
Are there any other community board members who want to?
Yes.
Yeah,
With respect to the studios, if I recall correctly, and correct me if I'm wrong, there is a designation of 119, 120 supportive housing units.
Correct.
There's a concern that there is a glut of supportive housing in the community, and we are wondering if DRC might be amenable to reconfiguring their plans to create more affordable housing for working class community members. Yeah,
So 79 of the units will specifically meet the needs that you mentioned and available through the city's housing lottery process, right? It's called Housing Connect. So those are 79 units that bring the studios, 1s, 2s, and 3s available to serve those needs.
the answer is no.
Yeah, thank you. I'm sorry, I want to follow up with that because the question I submitted, you stated that 15% would be, I think, allocated or CB9 would be given preference to access the units in this new development. Is that correct? I'm wondering, since you're saying you're coming in good faith to work with us and to hear our concerns, I'm wondering if there's any opportunity to increase that, since it is in our community board, that a higher percentage would go to the members of CB9.
Yeah,
Because there is a need here.
absolutely, yeah, that's a really good question. Unfortunately, the community board preference, I know used to be 50%, it's now gonna be 15 as a result of the lawsuit that challenged fair housing law. The point about the lawsuit was really to give people the option to live in different neighborhoods. So unfortunately, that will not be changing. I will say that the placements for the 120 supportive units, and correct me if I'm wrong, Nicole, are gonna be coming from Harlem Hospital, so they will be local residents. And yeah, I think that's, I'm not good, I think that's bad.
Are there any, Barry?
So I actually have a question for HPD. I got a lot of questions, but,
One question.
yes, so in 2013, you guys had this RFQ where developers submitted applications to get on a qualified developers list, right? And then between 2013 and 2019, how was BRC chosen off of that list to do this project? Was there like an internal RFP just to the qualified folks? And, you know, because UDAP also requires MWBEs be given explicit access to doing bids. And if you're doing a UDAP, did you comply with the MWBE provision?
Eric Adams, right?
So I can take a first stab and then
That's minority
This was-
business.
this was long before my time, so also Nicole, feel free to jump in at the designation. So although the supportive RFQ is a list of qualified supportive housing providers, so it's not like specific proposals submitted for a site like an RFP process, so it's a request for qualification, but is a list of supportive housing providers with expertise in supportive housing that then were periodically chosen to develop city-owned sites with supportive housing. So it's more of an internal process. Nicole, I don't know if you want
Just to add a little bit more about the makeup of the development team, so for the supportive housing RFQ, I believe that the team has to be at least 50% owned by a not-for-profit. This one is 100% owned not-for-profit. So we're excited about that. And then for the MWBE requirement, you might be referring to the spending requirement that HPE has for projects financed over $2 million, a certain set percentage.
I'm referring to a provision in the state law that created the UDAA.
Sorry.
The state, so UDAP, the Urban Development Action Area, whatever, is under the state laws, and the statute that created it specifies that pathways must be given for minority and women-owned businesses effectively in whatever archaic language that is written in, to have a chance to bid on these sites that are being transferred to developers. But the question that I originally asked hasn't been answered, which is, okay, so you've got this list, right? And I don't know how many supportive housing units BRC had in 2013, but I'll leave that aside. How did you go from that list? How many were on that list? And then how did you go from them to just BRC for this site specifically?
I think we have to agree with the folks here. None of us were there at the time, but we understand how the business works now, so we can explain our understanding. A lot of times we'll look to the teams who are of capacity to do some work. They've met their qualifications. Many times there will be some sort of local connection from the group. And we'll express interest and say to the team, you know, would you be interested in developing the site, and then work with them to see if we can offer the good project. It's based on past experience. They've done similar projects and you've seen that they can execute this kind of work. So it is similar than something similar 10 years ago.
So there's no process once you're on the list. It's kind of a we'll reach out to you when we have a site that we think you'll fit. It's not like it gets put, like, it's not like a private RFP that goes to the list and then they raise their hand.
That's right.
Okay, thank you.
We need to get to some of them. Thank you. The team you mentioned.
If I may answer. Right, this community needs multifamily housing. It. Already asked.
It already has.
It already has approximately 17 supportive housing buildings. Senior families, not a good mix to cohabitate. So I guess the question here is, how do you justify mixing seniors with folks who have mental and health needs in one building in addition to potential families? I don't know. I hope I got that question.
It is rather common in supportive housing that 60% is set aside for that population, including seniors, right? We're not differentiating people, mixed income, mixed buildings. Folks who age in place, who become seniors over time. I mean, it's not uncommon for there to be a range of household types in one building.
And also additional placement site. Or placement, a determination is made to ensure that these people are able to live independently and stably, so it's not going to be a situation where we have people doing activities that might harm their neighbors, and that sort of thing. So these people are determined to be stable enough to be able to live in that.
Thank you. I just have two more. So these kind of go hand in hand. Thank you. So what other support can BRC provide to the community aside from workforce development? And will the construction and building staff jobs be unionized?
I can speak to the latter question, I believe. The nature of typical construction and affordable housing is that they're not unionized. However, the building our staff, as we mentioned, the jobs specifically to BRC, our non-managerial positions are unionized through DC 37. So that's typical of BRC. And actually, we encourage people looking for jobs. When we talk about job fairs, it's not just when this building is built in 5 years, but starting now. We do a lot, in terms of workforce development across our agency, of a staff of over 1,300. We're constantly hiring, including in some of the local facilities that I mentioned. We encourage people, if they have an opportunity to look at our website, get a job now, there's an opportunity to move up, ask for a transfer to this property when it becomes available. We make transfers for people, for our staff, or whatever works for them. It's a location that works better for them, or a type of a program that they're interested in. So I wanted to reiterate that.
I just want to clarify one thing as far as the ratio of counselors to people you have in supportive housing. What's the ratio of that?
It's about 15 to 1. It is dictated specifically by a city program that's called New York City 1515 Initiative that dictates that ratio. I believe it is 15 to 1. So you would specifically look to that operating fund, that city program, who dictates that ratio specifically.
Okay.
I'm sorry, we are also getting support through a state program called Empire State. Supportive Housing Initiative, Supportive Housing Initiative.
Okay.
So those two funding sources dictate the ratios of case managers to supportive funds.
So in the field of counseling, which I was,
Sure.
the practitioner's ratio is actually 5 to 1. So 14 to 1 is actually 14.7.
15 to 1
is a lot. And given the number of supportive housing, drug treatment programs we already have in the area, people are concerned about that. The location is diagonally across from a school.
Yeah.
It's a half a block from daycare center. It's a half a block from a library. And it's a half a block from the Boys and Girls Club. So as I walk the street and people know me, they ask those questions. How do I justify having this facility come there? And most of the people are clients coming directly out of health and hospitals, which means they were homeless prior or drug treatment, correct? 30th precinct, that is the precinct for this area, has spoken to me several times about incidents, the next block on 46, on 47th. That's a high crime area, drugs being used. To put someone back in that same area that was a drug abuser is, in my mind, is insane. Not to mention, not to mention they're building a family shelter 2 blocks away. So people are concerned, not all the people could make it here tonight. Some are here, but I get to see people on a daily basis. Sometimes I have to walk the other way, not all the time, but because they look at me and say, how could you allow this to happen? We're not allowing it, it's being forced on us.
or being released from the psych ward at Harlem Hospital.
So those are the concerns. I just to, put things in perspective to some people not here and ask questions. They are, like I was at the daycare center last week. For BRC has some equipment they want to give away. I went to visit and they said, is that still going to happen? I said, yes, it is. They said, parents are concerned of what is going on. The public library spoke with me before. People, men in particular, come and just hang out. They don't have, someone that can move them out, but just come and hang out and they're concerned. So I just want to put that in perspective for you.
There is another wonderful schools, there are more than.
Right, there's several schools in the area.
That's fine.
Thank you for raising that concern, and we definitely understand that. I think, I just want to be really clear that this is going to be permanent housing for us. These people are your neighbors, and this will hopefully.
Let us speak, please. I just want to hear what you're saying. You're saying these people are our neighbors that moving in support of housing? Okay. So. No, it can be. I worked and volunteered at Face Piggyback right down the street, and I would ask people where to live. Oh, I live in Staten Island. Oh, I live in Queens. I said, why don't you? He said, they don't have that type of facility. But it's being forced upon us because the land is cheaper. The city owns the land, and we're just saying it's not fair. That's what I just want you to hear.
It's not on the same block. I live on that block. Many of my neighbors are shown up, and they are very concerned because the site, since it joined our block on 2022, has deteriorated. Many of the people are not from the block, they're not happy there themselves because they don't have oversight. And you want to bring more, and I think it's a serious question, and yes, they're permanent neighbors. But I mean, what does that change? How does that address our concern? That's very best. 475 West 155th Street. It's run by Samaritan Day Top Housing, which like PRC has been cited in the Department of Investigation's 2024 report for having too many units. There's 120
I think that's a perfect
Just
time.
to clarify, that's not a supported housing site. It has people who are formerly homeless, but there's a distinction. This is a site with on-site services for people. And that site is currently going through another HPD program and currently going through a rehab. So it's actually a process of being repaired. Yeah, but not.
Okay,
All
yeah.
of the supported site, and they're living there, and they've been living there for years, so it doesn't seem like you. Yeah.
I think it's a perfect time to go into public testimony, because I think at this point, we need to hear from Pat.
The design, I don't think it's right.
Yes, the design.
My statement has been my bone of contention from times for seeing the drawings, and it's gotten negative feedback, the rendering. People are saying it in itself looks like a prison. You walk out of you can show a picture, you step out at 145th and Amsterdam, and you're in the street. There's hardly any sidewalk there. It doesn't look as if it's taken the community in consideration. It's a very unattractive building. Maybe, I'm hoping there's opportunity to have some input there.
A garish prison in fact.
I have not heard anything positive.
All right, we're gonna now take public statements for people who have requested the opportunity to speak. We are gonna limit this to 2 minutes because I suspect we could go on till about 11:30 or midnight if we didn't. So I'm just gonna call people up one by one, in no particular order. There's one more person up there who's. Okay, so this Alexa Zonathan. Did I pronounce that terribly or?
Yeah.
So if you can put the mic in. Are you doing the time music?
Good evening. Good evening. My name is Alexa Zonathan. I am a longtime resident over 40 years, reside on West 144th Street. I'm also the vice chair of the West Harlem Community Preservation Organization. I am the president of the West 144th Street Landmark Block Association. And I'm also a licensed architect in the state of New York, as well as other states. Here's my statement. As a concerned Hamilton Heights, West Harlem resident and voting constituent, I am opposed to the proposed 1727 Amsterdam Avenue supportive housing project which will replace the existing federally qualified health center, eliminating the biomedical services currently provided there to our communities and beyond. This project was planned without taking our needs and concerns into consideration and without any interface with our local community board, Manhattan Community Board 9. The 1727 Amsterdam project, AKA HIL Top Apartments, as proposed by Bowery Residents Committee, BRC, the private company designated by HPD to develop and manage this replacement facility will include 120 supportive housing units explicitly designated for New York City Health and Hospitals patients struggling with mental illness and substance abuse, thereby increasing the number of supportive housing units within the immediate vicinity by more than a third.
Thank you.
The Heights West Harlem community presently has far more than its fair share of such facilities. While we support and encourage the provision of services to people experiencing substance abuse and mental health issues, we believe that facilities to assist them must be equitably distributed throughout the entire city. Hamilton Heights, West Harlem is now both under-resourced and oversaturated.
That's right.
Sadly, treatments for substance abusers and the mentally ill add to the serious burden faced by local residents and law enforcement, including the attraction of more illegal drug traffickers.
Thank you for your testimony.
Upon vulnerable populations.
We have one more member of Community Board 9, who is the co-chair of the Health and Environment Committee.
All right, how's it going, y'all?
Hey.
It's an exciting room right now. I think what I'm gonna say, so my name is Cameron. I'm the co-chair of the Health Committee. I'm a medical student. I'm a resident of Harlem. I'm a resident of CB9. I also formerly was a fellow at We Act for Environmental Justice. They don't pay me anymore, so I'm not representing them right now. But I think what I'm saying right now probably isn't gonna make me the most popular in this room. But I think I feel like it has to be said is that, I think that this, and, respect to the folks over here who are having to defend decisions that were made largely before a lot of them, sounds like they worked for BRC or for, HPD. And I think that's a tough position to be in. Unfortunately, I think where we're at right now with Harlem, I live I live at 145th Street. And I live right by Edgecombe, and I've seen the development of encampments of homeless folks who have literally nowhere else to go in our community, outside of our community. And, I think there's a visceral reaction that people see when they see somebody who is street unhoused, who is using drugs on the street in front of them. But unfortunately, fortunately or unfortunately, it's programs like these that are actually the solution to the issues of open drug use, to the issues of addiction, to the issues of substance use and dependence. And I could wax, and I think basically everybody in this room, I think we've talked plenty about how this process has been untransparent, about how about how the community was not involved in the decision-making about the design or the construction of this building. But I think if I want to broaden this out a little bit, Harlem still desperately needs affordable housing. Harlem still desperately needs supportive housing. And unfortunately, the people that are in DC in the Trump administration right now have no interest in providing any support for folks who are homeless, folks who are unhoused, folks who are using drugs, folks who need support. So that money, and this is a situation that I've been in with the organization that I've worked in before, Environmental Justice Organization. That money has dried up for them. The money is going to dry up for HPD, it's going to dry up for BRC. And I understand that this is like a very imperfect and it's a flawed project in many ways. But that said, I think it's a better project than the one that was down on 145th Street, all the way on the east side, where they're trying to build a luxury tower. And it's a better project than a lot of the ones that I haven't seen a project in like the last 10 years that I've been in this community that has been 100% affordable housing.
It could be a better.
I'm saying that I agree with everybody. I agree with everybody in this room.
You have kids?
I agree with everybody in this room that this project could be a better
You have
project.
children.
Do I have children? No, I live here.
Okay.
I agree with everybody in this room that this project could be a much better project. But my fear is that if this project is denied, that we might not get another chance to build anything. That's my genuine fear. I appreciate y'all for hearing me out. I know you might not agree with my perspective, but that's all.
Thank you.
You want me to take that? Is that- Okay. So the next, public testimony is going to be from Edna Lober. I pronounced that correctly? Yeah, do you want to say some? No, okay, fine. Lori Reeves, you don't have to if everybody's willing to.
Living up to 10 years. And what I've seen.
Maybe get the next person ready.
Okay.
Speaking of my, because that's online.
That's a good idea. Well, this one looks like.
Ask her to get the next two people that can speak up.
Okay, the next speaker after this will be Hetty Cunningham. So. And these public testimonies need to be confined to 2 minutes.
Got it. So I moved up here in 1998. I always worked in Midtown a bit, but I have seen over the last, especially after COVID, the situation's gotten worse and worse. I live on Convent, 145th is St. Nick, and I walk these streets every single day. I go to the Riverbank Park, and I swim 5 days a week. Everybody knows me. Some like me, some don't. I meet with the police department, the 30th precinct. I talk to them every month. I know the reality of what's going on in the streets. Drug dealers that are still here, they're saturated, they're everywhere. You might not see them, but they're there. I talk to the cops. So these people who have drug issues moving into this new development, they're gonna have plenty of dealers out there ready to serve them. We are saturated with drug dealers left and right. Also, we have so many homeless shelters that you're not even aware of, because I talk to the supers in the buildings, up and down the brownstones are shelters. You're just not aware of it. Tri-X Real Estate that offers market rate homes now house homeless. 267 Edgecombe. I live in Hillview, the co-op on the corner of the 3 towers there. I used to live in 267 Edgecombe. It was a wonderful place to live. It's a dump. Because they filled it, Tri-X has filled it with homeless, because thanks to de Blasio, he's allowed all these management companies to bring in homeless that are now forced to live with people who are paying market rent. That's just the tip of the iceberg of what's going on. We're saturated here completely with drug centers, drug dealers, and we don't need more of that. This is not serving our community.
No, it's not. The next person ready, David.
I'm sorry. Say again.
Next person ready.
Yeah, I will. The person after Hetty Cunningham is going to be Barry Weinberg.
Okay, it's nice to go after Laura because she's my swim partner. So I'm going to address the 3 facets of why I'm in support of this program, and I'll read it so I can go fast. Number 1, community members want and need this service in this community. I'm a 2nd-generation Harlem resident and a homeowner in District 9. But more importantly, for the past 27 years, I've worked every day as a community doctor for only Medicaid patients at my practice on 135th Street and Broadway. When I first heard about this redevelopment plan, I was ecstatic. For people with substance use disorder, finally, treatment for my patients right here in their neighborhood. Well, what do my patients think? So I did an informal poll of 10 of my families who live in the neighborhood, and their response was a resounding yes. This is what we need. Each of them had a story to tell, often about a family member, friend, or acquaintance who would have benefited from this service. Additionally, as a neighborhood physician speaking more personally, we need more of these services in our community. I absolutely reject the idea that this area has too many services for people in need. The wait list for my families with Medicaid are more than 6 months. These people are our family members. They are my family members and they're members of my community. The Bowen Center has a kind of a checkered past. More recently, the mental health services have improved significantly and currently many patients who receive services there. However, most mental health is now delivered virtually, so reducing the footprint makes sense to me. The science for supportive housing, study after study shows this has transformative impacts on homelessness and addiction. I was recently in Hawaii and heard the governor, who's also a doctor, bragging about how he told Trump that if he wants to bring down costs and improve quality of life, he should invest in supportive housing for people with addiction. This is the answer to so many of our difficulties here in New York City. We need more services. I've also raised children across the street from supportive housing, and it has been wonderful for their compassion. These people are our people, they're our community members. Thank you.
Okay, Barry?
Yeah.
Who's right there?
Followed by Rachel Aronson.
All right, I'm gonna try to keep it very brief. So my name is Barry Weinberg. I was chair of Manhattan Community Board 9 from 2019 to 2023. We've been out about this project. I have a couple of things to say, some of which not everyone will agree with. Number one, I agree with Cameron. If we are concerned about the issue of street homelessness in our neighborhood, the only solution to that is supportive housing. And that is why Community Board 9, while I was on the board, ranked that high in our budget requests. However, we did that because we had many years of trust and cooperation with other supportive housing providers in the area, like Broadway Housing, that have shown what supportive housing can be as the model. One of the things that people don't always know is that the existing academic literature that looks at the impact of supportive housing, not on its residents, but on the surrounding areas, has found that above a certain number of units, roughly 45 units, the impact to quality of life concerns, disorderly conduct summons goes up significantly in a statistically significant way. And I will note that at Woodhull Houses 2, which was built on an HHC parking lot in Brooklyn, where they were not displacing a federally qualified health center, they built 53 supportive housing units. And then they also built affordable housing units. So why, when you're displacing an existing health center, when 10,000 people are gonna lose their doctors, why are we building 120 units of supportive housing when we know that a more optimal number is 45? Number one. Number two, no one did their homework here for like a decade. Okay, there are procurement problems. The EAS is full of, let's say, inaccuracies or lies. No one looked at the impact that this would have on the healthcare provided to the neighborhood. And you know what, like, I grew up going to Catholic Mass, okay, this is gonna show. The city, and particularly health and hospitals, screwed up royally. They didn't want to do ULURP. We told them for 3 years we wanted an upzoning for more housing. They said no. Now they say, well, that would take 3 years. Which one were up 3 years ago? But they have screwed up. Confess. Admit that you screwed up. Admit how you screwed up. Repent. Try to do better. Commit to doing better for our neighborhood. And we're free. And except instead of all Hail Marys, you need to take the L. You're gonna have to lose some time on the timeline for the project, and you're gonna have to go back to the drawing board and move the community cooperation act.
Hazel Aronson. And then after that, okay, and after that is Pascal Leon.
Hello, my name is Rachel. I appreciate having the opportunity to speak here tonight. I'm relatively new to the Hamilton Heights neighborhood, but I grew up down the hill, where we experienced firsthand the harmful impact of rapid development with little input from the community. Therefore, I understand and strongly support the recommendation that PRC truly partners with a local organization that has ties to the neighborhood. Furthermore, as a social worker who is tasked with connecting clients with care, I feel it's necessary to underscore that 1727 Amsterdam serves an important purpose. It houses vital health services that are accessible to this community, ones that should be expanded, not shrinking. At a time when access to healthcare is being threatened across the country, New York City has the opportunity to set a strong example and show that we protect our residents, we care for them, and treat them with dignity.
And then after that, Matt Thurman.
Who's the first one?
Is that right?
That's how
Yeah.
Good evening, everyone. Can you hear me okay? Yeah. Okay. I just want to say thank you so much. I know, I can just get a passion from everyone in this room and how deeply you care for your community. And that's why I made it out here tonight. My name is Pascal Leon. I'm the Executive Director of the Supportive Housing Network of New York. And so we're a membership organization that represents the over 200 nonprofits that deliver, develop, and provide services in supportive housing. And so you heard a little bit what supportive housing is, but I just want to say that as someone, as a child, who was unstably housed, and was homeless for about 7 months, I know that homelessness can happen to anyone. You know, you don't have to be chemically addicted to be homeless. You don't have to have a mental illness to be homeless. Homelessness can happen and will happen to a lot of people. I mean, the way this country is going, and if this president is successful, we'll see a lot more of that. You think the 80s were bad, what we're expecting is so much worse, but this is a whole different conversation. I'm also here as someone who had family members grow up in the foster care system, in supportive housing, out of shelter, and I have a cousin who just is now 2 years in her own apartment, living independently and making 6 figures at her job. I have seen what supportive housing done. I worked in public health, I worked in healthcare, I'm an organizer by trade, I worked in reproductive justice, but for the last 12 years, I've been in the supportive housing space. Supportive housing started here in New York City. It's not just a national model, it is an international model. I'm meeting with people from the UK, Australia, it works. And I'm telling you, I've met hundreds of people across this country, doctors, lawyers, filmmakers. This is the people who live in supportive housing. I want to encourage folks to not pathologize, not stigmatize people who experience homelessness because it can happen to any single one of us. I want to say, but I'll just share my
Yeah, please.
And I'll just say, if anyone wants to meet tenants and meet any in tour supportive housing, what is truly supportive housing, it is not shelter, it is not a residential treatment. I will show you supportive housing, have tenants show you and tell you themselves. And yet I live across the street from a house that has supportive housing for folks with intellectual and developmental disabilities. Nobody's against supportive housing.
Okay, so the next speaker is Matt Gerber, and after that is Ahmad Akkad.
Who's on that?
Ahmad, I think it's Ahmad Akkad.
Ahmad Akkad?
Did I get that right? Okay. And I'm sorry if I mispronounce anybody's name at this point.
Yes.
My name is Matt Thurber. I'm a resident on 146 in the Amsterdam Convent. I wrote a question. It wasn't a statement so much, but in a larger context, I'd like to ask the question and then give you some of my observations following this for the last few years, following CB9's attempts to help the community understand what was happening here. We started in complete non-transparency about this situation. Like was stated earlier, it was only discovered when soil samples were being taken at the building. And then it took a long time to get anybody to admit that anything was happening here. So it seemed the primary idea was to get this thing put through, demolished, built before anybody knew what was happening, before any community outreach was made. There was a whole argument being made by the city that it didn't have to go through the ULUR process, and it was actually CB9 that made this meeting possible, made this whole effort. My main concern is I believe that something is going to go up and something is needed here. Anyone who lives in New York knows that all kinds of housing are needed, including supportive housing. My concern has to do primarily with whatever percentage of supportive housing is in this project. What assurances, either actual or stated, will ensure that the proper staffing is done at this site? I think we can all agree that probably once the developer is done and they're gone, they've, you know, made their deals, they've made their money. What's going to actually happen on site? You know, there are 25 stated staff people. How many of them are actual social workers? You know, professional healthcare people. And you know, so that's my main question. And also, I'm sorry, just seconds. What assurances, what water do they hold when, in the context of this thing, there was so little transparency at the beginning? I think we need we need a completely different relationship with these people.
Right.
You don't trust them.
Okay, so up on, and after that, Andres Orehinda? Sorry.
All right, so I just have 2 points. One is the design of the building itself, right? I think too often when we build things inside Black and brown people's neighborhoods, they just throw them up without any regard to how it impacts the community.
Thank you. That's it.
It's a historic area. That building looks like it does not belong, and with what is already happening on 145th Street and Lenox Avenue, right? It's setting a dangerous precedent for the destruction of 145th Street, right? So we focus on that. Also, as a mental health counselor, I work with BRC, right? I help train a lot of folks who do supportive housing, right? The issue that I continue to have is that oftentimes once we build these buildings, they're not maintained, right? And when they're not maintained, then it makes it harder for other communities to trust them because they are stuck with buildings in their community that aren't being served. I work with the employees, I've heard horror stories. I was at an HPD panel yesterday, talking with folks, and many of the people who are living in mixed-use buildings where they have supported housing are moving out, right? Because their buildings, once they build them, they're not being maintained. I'm not saying this is a BRC issue, but I'm just saying in general, it happens. And when it does happen, it's harder for those communities to trust more supportive housing. So if we're going to do it, we have to do it right to make sure that folks feel safe when we do it. That's pretty much it.
After Andres, Monica Giaz McMillan.
Well, she left.
She left.
Yeah.
So after Andres will be Calvin Harrison.
I just want to thank all the community members here at the community board. I brought news of this project to Community Board 9 in 2022. I've been warning that West Harlem can't lose medical care ever since. Unfortunately, my concerns have only grown. A lack of transparency, willingness to conceal plans and lie, a lack of concern for public safety and public input, fair community development, a dubious provider and their expertise, plus losing healthcare. Disrespect towards local communities and their expertise is familiar when municipalities across the United States are fighting the federal government over the streets. When we first found out about this plan, we were told, and I quote, "You're not supposed to know about this." HPD and HHC said between 2022 and 2025 that this public hearing wouldn't happen because it was unnecessary. They hid, lied, and tried to deny our due process. We went there environmental assessment, it said no law downstairs, no law public space, no asbestos on site. It's not true. In 2024, VRC dismissed our concerns about safety and its checkered management. I live on the same street and have seen violence, drug trafficking, and 2 murders. But BRC claimed its problems with its neighbors and financial accounting were incorrect and outdated when we met in 2024. But an audit from July 2025, where's Ahmed, says that the problems at its Chelsea residence persist. And this isn't me, this is the New York State Controller. Recent reports in the Times and the New Yorker show that BRC's high concentration of supportive units do result in overdose deaths, violence against neighbors, and instability. BRC hasn't built supportive housing in Manhattan. They shouldn't. There are far better providers. In West Harlem, we need more healthcare, Cameron. We need more affordable, more supportive apartments to build more and to make sure that our community builds around a new development with welcoming spaces for businesses and local needs. We want this. It has to be done the right way. And HPD and HMC approached us honestly 3 years ago. Construction would already be underway on more healthcare, more apartments, more emergencies. I'm so sorry. John Braille and Mark Levine should fight for more. I've been living here, Americans. I think Sean Braille hasn't done enough for our community.
Calvin is Ernest Lyles.
Hi, I'm Calvin Harrison. I'm a resident on 141st and Hamilton Place. I'm also a former patient at Heritage Health and a former patient of Harlem Hospital and someone who has struggled on and off with substance abuse. The people who would be served by this development are our current neighbors and our future neighbors, and I think that it's very obvious that this has been a flawed process and that there's been a lot of lost trust. And I see that and I see that pain, but I want to first say that should never cause us to speak in cruel ways about people who struggle. We need to be building a city where everyone has a place to sleep at night. I think that there are certainly, I wish that we were fighting for more. I wish there were more housing on every block. I wish there were more services on every block. But when I walk past Heritage Healthcare now and see that they've blocked off the playground, I worry that losing this project will cause our neighborhood to have an empty building sitting, waiting for a development that's never gonna come. I think that this is a lesson for us as a community, for HPD, for the city, of how to do things better in the future. And I wish this were not how I felt. I wish I had more faith, but I see so many times in New York, nothing gets built, nothing gets changed. People keep sleeping on the streets, people keep getting pushed out of the city because projects don't go through, and I really would hate to see us lose an opportunity to have more neighbors with more services that we all need. And I hope that soon we have another chance to restart from the beginning and do this process right and get the things we all deserve as a neighborhood.
Lyles, I live on the block of 146 in Compton. I've got 2 daughters, a 12-year-old and a 7-year-old. I just want to say that I really believe that decisions matter. I've watched our block deteriorate significantly, but I love our block. My biggest challenge has been the block as a dad with 2 girls. In 2018, taking my one morning, my daughter, we had to step over yellow chalk and blood lines because someone on that corner had walked in, shot a guy in the head in the chicken restaurant. 2020, across from, or actually right in front of the same building, I remember sort of trying to redirect my daughter's attention because someone had shot the actual bus stop shots out, and you find out later two people were shot that night before school started. She's right, it's very real. I know drug addicts by name, I know the hustlers who try not to hustle when they come back and like the money's right there in front of them. It is real, it's a war zone. And, you know, I would say to this brother here, guard your integrity, like understand how real it is on this block. It has changed significantly. Like it's all day nonstop. It is way too much. I walk 3 blocks to take my daughter to drop off. I have to step over drug addicts. They openly now smoke crack. I have family members who have been, you know, crack addicts, whatever you call it. It is open market. I asked your boss, he came to my house and said, have you talked to 30th Precinct? No. Some lord on the block is now that block. It's mess everywhere. The way we found this out in 2019 or 2022 is because my super was like, yo, why don't y'all clean up this block? Like, what is this mess? And then, oh, he found out from another person that it was shutting down. We talk about DC and corruption. This has been the most corrupt thing I've ever seen. All Democrats. It has been a mess. And I would just say this to Sean Abreu, to Mark Levine, your career is on the line. The thing that should be here is the record that there's 2 schools right across from. The first time someone touches one of those kids or a stray bullet hits somebody in the head, this right here, hopefully is recorded because they should go back and play it. We talked to Mark Levine in 2022, the lack of respect we got. He was in the middle of a gala, got on and started talking about how we need to focus more on migrants than what was going on in our block. We have been ignored, and I've never seen anything like this before. And I believe it's specifically because the neighborhood is 50% Hispanic and 25% Black. If we were 20, 30 blocks further south, we would have none of this drama.
That's right.
So we had a request to have this statement read. This is by a public member, Patricia Jordan. So good evening, on behalf of the board of directors, staff, clients of the ML Bone Community Service Center. I would like to thank the members of Manhattan Community Board 9 for hosting this important public meeting on the future of 7027 Amsterdam Avenue. For nearly 4 decades, the Bone Center has been a trusted resource for Harlem, the surrounding communities, and New York City at large, providing vital mental health, addiction treatment, and supportive services for infants, children, adolescents, adults, and families. They provide a list of programs and services, but just because there's a second page, we're going to move on. Since our inception, 1727 Amsterdam Avenue has been our home, the place where we have carried out our mission to meet problems of living with comprehensive and compassionate services. While the building has served us well, it has long required major repairs and modernization. Admittedly, our early interactions with both health and hospitals and BRC regarding redevelopment were difficult at times, even adversarial. From the onset, Bone shared information about our wide range of critical programs and services for all ages, as well as our concerns. And while we understand the city's urgent need for affordable and supportive housing, we have always believed that one critical need should not come at the expense of another. Goals were and remain threefold: that the Bone Center remains in the Harlem community, that all Bone programs and services continue to be housed under one roof, and that our rent remains affordable and sustainable. Ultimately, thanks in part to early intervention by Senators Cordell Fair and Dr. Jackson, all parties recognized the importance of reaching an agreement that fulfills those goals. With the encouragement and support of New York City Councilmember Sean Abreu, Manhattan Borough President Mark Levine, the City of New York, and this community board, H&H Mid helping us shoulder the primary burden of moving our operations twice within the proposed 5-year redevelopment period, preparing the temporary relocation site for occupancy, subsidizing rental payments at the temporary location, and ensuring our eventual return to a purpose-built space designed specifically for our programs and clients in the new development, though a thoughtful process with architects from BRC and informed input from our staff. With our temporary relocation to 520 West 135th Street expected before the end of the year, this arrangement ensures that the Bone Center will not only remain in Harlem, but remain rooted in this community, continuing our nearly 40-year legacy of service and positioning us to serve generations to come.
All right, I'm gonna hand the microphone over to Michael Gross, who's a member of the CB9 Housing Land Use and Zoning Committee.
It's just to say, if there are folks on Zoom who want to ask a question, if you could just raise your hand on the screen. We just want to make sure we include everyone.
Question or statement.
Question or statement or any other.
Anyone from John?
In the meantime, I'm just going to continue with folks who have comments that are here. Tiffany Com.
So all too often, we see either one minority group or one vulnerable disenfranchised group pitted against the other. And as we're busy at each other's throats, we lose track of what's really at stake and the smoke and mirrors of why we're in this space. We are not, when I say we, I'm a former Community Board 9 member. I'm one of the group of folks that was booted off of the board for not rubber stamping some of these projects and for speaking quite frankly about them. And it's not just this, it's 701 West 135th Street, and the list goes on. I'm also a member of Concerned Citizens for a Better Harlem and the West Harlem Community Preservation Organization. The list goes on. We are not against supportive housing. In fact, we are recommending other nonprofits like BHC, that's Broadway Housing Community. Right. This is the group that has a fantastic reputation across Harlem. They have the Sugar Hill Children's Museum, they have the space on 135th Street, River Flag Drive. They have been a model in this community, not only offering supportive housing and affordable housing with rent stabilized apartments, but even community spaces that we on the board have been using for years, that by the way are also beautiful.
Yes.
Dare I ask, is it too much to say we need these housing spaces and maybe even, I don't know, a museum, an after school program, maybe science programs that are not just 1% of Black and brown students admitted to the specialized high school like we can have these things. And I think we need to have, and I'm no offense to you people, but let's be honest, the comptroller report, it wasn't just July, it was also August. We deserve to have better and stop profiteering off of homelessness. There has been too much exploitation of the homelessness industrial complex. And it's a confluence of crises, mental health and housing. And there are people who are turning this into the new cash cow. Thank you. Thank you.
You have your hand raised on the Zoom call. If you just go ahead and unmute yourself.
Who, anonymous or?
Yeah, I'm trying to pull it up right now. Sorry, guys.
Leaf house or?
Yeah.
So it's behind your Q and A.
Yeah, there you go. Now expand it with the thing in the.
No, the right one.
Yeah.
The arrows.
There you go.
Okay, Matthew Ellen, do you want to unmute yourself?
Yeah, ask to unmute.
Hey, okay, yeah, sorry, yeah, the host had to unmute. So when I found out about this, I was just shocked that a very, I would say like just incredibly prime piece of real estate to the public, the corner of 145th and St. Nicholas at the top of the hill. There isn't anything in this building that looks to connect the streets to it. You know, there's no space on the ground floor for the public. There's no revised commercial space. Amsterdam Avenue, it has dead spots in it as it is. Further up by the funeral home, where there's a new apartment being constructed right now, and on this corner, the spots that don't have any commercial or public interest lining on the ground floor. And I think that inherently makes them more dangerous at night, especially in areas with I guess drug or alcohol abuse issues that happen. So that was really my main concern, although I was also I'm still kind of shocked at how it's BRC that somehow awarded this when I've been told there's at least 20 other nonprofits that work in this community that do the exact same thing, that were not, you know, didn't get an option to pitch on this. And that's all I really have to say. Thanks.
Okay, one more on Zoom. Terza Greer, do you want to unmute yourself?
Yes. Hi, good evening, everyone. So my name is Terza Greer. I am a longtime Harlem resident, grew up in this community. I know Hetty. I'm a pediatrician, as she is too, and I don't serve this community in that way, but I do serve the community in the Bronx, where that need is very vast. My question is, just in particular, why here? I actually put that in the chat. I travel on Metro North at least a few times a week and various places around the city. And at least two things are true most times of the day. There are many homeless people in need who appear to spend a good portion of their time in many, many communities, but especially along that 125th Street corridor from Lexington, Manhattan Avenue. Often I look at that empty lot over there. I look at the empty lot across from Harlem Hospital and all across the city. I don't know if they're city owned or not, which I think is one of the criteria that I hear is being used to justify erecting these sort of transitional homes. So why not one of those spaces, not being more suitable, where the lot is already empty? Why would we tear down this FQHC space that maybe we could renovate or elevate into something more meaningful in the community to justify this sort of transitional housing? So I just wanted to, or supportive housing. So I wanted to know if anybody could speak to that and vetting different spaces. Why here?
Would somebody like to address that?
It's publicly owned on the bill, that's the answer. And the building needs a lot of money dumped into it if it was gonna stay, so they're gonna tear it down because it doesn't make sense. That is the answer.
But if there's something that's already torn down, why are we tearing down more? Right, there's plenty of empty lots all across Harlem. And certainly if these patients are coming from Harlem Hospital, as you say, couldn't it be reasonable to transition across the street from a community that you're familiar with, where Pan and a lot of these other sort of, memorable sites that most of us who have grown up in Harlem recall, but we're wondering what is happening with these empty sites?
Yeah, so I can try, this is Joy from HPP. I can try and answer some of that. I think it'd be helpful to understand, you're saying along the 125th Street corridor. We in certain spots, to be honest, there's not a ton of city-owned sites in Manhattan. It is that we really need in order to build 100% affordable housing. Because otherwise the land value is pretty significant in this borough. So that's the long and short of it. But I'm happy to take a look at some of the lots that you mentioned and just see if those could be options for future housing too.
Not transitional.
Oh, and also, yes, thank you. So to clarify, this is not transitional housing. It's supportive, these will be permanent homes for folks who are permanent homes and both for kitchens, open. So just want to make that clarification.
Can I just add that on 134th Street, half of that block, but behind the police precinct is a parking lot for NYPD and most of the time it's empty. It is half the block.
That's what.
Okay, we're wrapping up. Like I said, our time limit is just about up. I want to thank everybody for coming out. We heard a lot of opinions today.
Oh,
He was here earlier, but she had to leave.
Got it.
Yeah, Monica McMillan, I think your hand was raised.
If you search for her, you can.
You can type in, find a person.
Oh, there she is.
Monica McMillan, do you wanna say something?
Sure. Hello. Thank you. I was there earlier and just appreciate everyone sharing a little bit more about the project. Good evening. I'm Monica Diaz McMillan. I'm a parent at PS 153 and a strong advocate in our parent leadership committee. Right across the street from 1727 is where my daughter's school is, as well as William Lynch. My daughter was also there today. I attended tonight because I can't believe we're having to discuss that placing a project like this in front of this elementary school is inappropriate. I mean, we're not talking about some abstract zoning parcel. We're talking about my two children's walk to class every morning. So the sight lines from the playground, the air they breathe when they open their windows. And I know we've talked a lot about balance today, but I don't believe there's something balanced about putting a facility like this in front or across the street from a school full of 6-year-olds. We all know what's happening just down the hill, St. Nicholas Avenue and 145th, open drug use, dealers operating in broad daylight, and feces on the street. 3 schools and a police precinct are there, and the city can't contain it. So, and that's not speculation. It's that's what's happening. I know we're told to trust that this is a new project will be different. That having lived myself in next to a BRC facility, I can say that was the opposite in my experience when I lived in Chelsea, and when in front of my daughter there was an individual that brought up their genitalia in front of her. And so this community engagement and the belief that there will be oversight, I think that's kind of what I'm hearing the community concern is about. I don't think the parents are buying it. There is concern from other folks at PS 153, and just want to say we don't want this in our backyards. It's about our school's front porch. So thank you for letting me speak. I think there are better sites, safer sites, places that don't put vulnerable kids on the front line of this idea. If you wouldn't build this in your own school or your own community, I'd ask why it's being built here.
Walter Alexander, do you wanna say something?
Unmute. Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm here. My name is Walter. Can you hear me? Oh, wait, okay. Am I unmute? Am I unmute? Okay, one more time. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, Walter.
Here we go. Walter T. Alexander. I'm a co-chair of the Senior Action Committee, as well as a committee member of the Arts and Culture Committee. I am a licensed social worker. I worked 24 plus years in the DHS shelter system. It's a wonderful thing to want to get homeless folks off the streets and into housing. However, as a recovering addict myself, I know that when you put clients into shelter, sometimes it just doesn't work out. We had a project with Bronx, Lebanon at that time. They took 6 peer counselors who were clients in our shelter to do peer counseling. Once they completed the program, they were able to get housing. However, they graduated, had ceremony, everything. They moved them into apartments. All of them got studio apartments, $150 a week. Little known to us as well as them that the clients had substance abuse history. Before we knew it, 5 of the clients, or 4 of them, were relapsing, and they were taking the stoves and the refrigerators out of the apartments to sell them. If they're going to put formerly or homeless clients into housing, supportive housing, there should be a mandate that the client should have to take periodic substance abuse urine and hair screening to see if they're relapsing. If they relapse, I'm not saying to throw them back on the street, but maybe they need to go back into rehab or something to get themselves back on their feet. As I hope that this project, I hope that the BRC is listening to the comments of the committee as well as my fellow community board members. I hope that they can make adjustments. Why don't we have a mayor coming in who seems like he's going to be a boon to the city. That's my opinion. And why don't we do something fresh as well as we having a fresh new mayor possibly coming in? Why not have this be a BRC / community collaboration? Let's see if we can make something where, okay, well, if the community residents are saying this is ugly, this may not work here, let's see what we can do so to appease everybody. Let's try to see if we can get something where everybody is a little more happy. That's my comment.
All right, thank you.
You got one more. We don't, okay.
You and Laura's hand.
Yeah, we have to close up at this time, like I said, 9:30 now. Thank you for coming out once again. People heard your opinion, both sides of the coin, and I appreciate it. Our voice needs to be heard. And thank you for coming out, listening so much to everybody that is here, that you say.
Please come to the rally on Saturday. Please come to the rally on Saturday.
One other announcement, and that is that the public comment period.
Hey, let me get David our attention.
Yeah. The public comment period is still open, and you all received handouts, and if you didn't, they're outside, which has a QR code if you want to put in further public comments. And they're open, as I said, until November 15th. And thank you so much.
Can you put that in the chat so that people can put, I'll put it in the chat. Give me a second.
Can we save the chat comment? And they should go on our website.
Okay.
Are they ending this?
Cathedral of St. John the Divine in Upper Manhattan for the 100th Memorial Day service. The department lost 8 active duty members last year, including FDNY Captain Thomas La Barbiera,